There are two mistakes one can make along the way to truth: not going all the way and not starting. Buddha. Hey everybody, I thought I was going to do something that had some material, but this is just kind of a talking session really, and hopefully people will join me if you want to talk, because I've got I got some like phlegm that occurs, so sometimes I'll cough, sometimes I'll need to spit. I don't know what it is. Anyways, plain truth, how's it going? Great quote. Yeah, I like that quote. And let me get going with the usual. You can always donate via Bitcoin or Vertcoin, my two coins of choice. You can always see the transactions. These two transactions were taking money out of my Patreon, giving it to Susie Dawson when she needed it, and Vertcoin is still nothing there. And you can either do Google Super Chat or PayPal.me, and I disclose any donations I get for the previous month and all months total on the first video of the month. Join the Flat Earth People Finder, ZoomTruth.com. I haven't been too involved, unfortunately, just because I've just too much going on. I still have some legal issues I need to take care of, and that's kind of been on my worries, along with kids being sick and all this other stuff. Let's see. Yeah, too much information. Yeah. 2 hours ago. Yeah, I was thinking about that. I was almost not going to do one tonight anyway. The thing about telling the truth in all instances, and I think what I really love are the people who, whether I agree with them or not, that they just start telling people about themselves and or things that they want to do or how they want to think, and they just let it all out there. And it's usually the younger generation. And I think the problem with the older generation is that we never did that. And let me switch it over. See, that's why I didn't want to do a stream. I just don't want to be coughing all over you guys. At least your ears. And yeah, you're going to get right now. I mean, even before the internet, even if you told the truth, it was a little bit more intimate, right? You had people, let's talk maybe in the 80s or any time before the internet, right? It was a little bit more intimate because there's just people that you knew you were going to have to face day to day, whether it's school, whether it's your parents, your friends, your work, whatever. You have to interact with them. So anytime you had to tell the truth about something, especially something personal, something that you need to get off your chest, you have to confront them physically. Now you don't do that. Hi, Nicholas Burnett. Now you tell someone, and usually most people are like, yeah, okay. I'm okay with it. There's so much going on. It's like, hey, you had to get that off your chest. Great. Awesome. You know, I think that's where you find your true friends, whether they are your family or not. They're like, they accept you for who you are, no matter what. I mean, it's like, well, yeah, there's a reason I'm your friend, because I know you. And whether something that you want to get off your chest, whatever, I understand. Whether it's a confession or not, where if it's a confession, then it's like, hey, that's something you need to handle. You know, that's what a friend will probably say. It's like, what do you want me to do with this information? Or it's like, hey, I I just want to get that off my chest. I just need someone to listen to me without acting all weird and stuff like that. So with the internet, you kind of lose that face-to-face interaction, but it's somewhat easier because you don't have it, but it's also somewhat harder because anyone could come in and voice their opinion. They can spew hate, they can spew whatever it is that they want just to get you all riled up or to get you to stop. But if you think about it, the support that you get is great because it's just the truth that's being told, right? And people just appreciate the truth. There's beauty in it because there's just courage in truth. And whenever we look at all the people who are truth seekers, truth tellers, and they face repercussions. It's like, look, I want to say my say, whether it's right or not, we won't know till we talk about it, till we discuss it, till we understand it. But just to throw someone under the bus just for saying it, just the message, it's that's a big slippery slope that occurs. I mean, we can find so many quotes out there, and that's kind of what I have is this this quote thing that I could just look through and how great it is. This isn't necessarily this is just courage, not just truth and courage, but there's also images here, which is just as good, which I'd love to go over, just something more to talk about. Tracy Twyman, yeah. Nicholas Burnett. So many people have told the truth in some form or fashion, or at least seek the truth, right? Just the quote that I have today, is 2 mistakes one can make along the way to the truth: not going all the way and not starting. And that requires courage on 2 ends. First, you got to get started, and that takes some courage. And you've got to, once you uncover some of the truth, sometimes it's scary because you realize, there's a reason why they are hiding the truth, or someone. I'm just using a they. And it appears that someone else was looking into the truth and something happened to them. And you investigate that. It's like, maybe I should stop. But some people just don't stop. It really requires courage. And some people, like even the high-known ones, Chelsea Manning, Julian Assange, whatever your thoughts on them, they still face persecution. And basically what they're persecuted for is revealing the bad things that are going on, which the public should know about. That's why they're called whistleblowers. And just the courage it takes to just let people know what's going on, even though you have an idea what's going to happen to you. I mean, how many people would consider going and doing that? And I think we've got a problem today. It's all based on that. People just aren't courageous enough to tell the truth or admit the truth or reveal the truth. And it's sad. I think it's starting to be better. And one of the things that I watched earlier today was this was on February 7th, 2020, but this is something about an event that happened in 2017, which I really didn't know about. I wasn't paying attention. I was busy doing other stuff, I guess. But We the Internet TV, I kind of like them for a big subscriber base. I don't agree with like messages or whatever, but still the idea of free speech is big with them. And it's funny because they're always on they say they're the classic left, progressive left, whatever it is. And free speech was important. So this is Katie Herzog. So she wrote, well, it's funny when you listen to them. He's the host, and this is Heather Hane and Brett Weinstein. And I think they're married, right? And what happened is Evergreen State College in Olympia, Washington, they had some weird thing in the past where students of color would be able to go, the minorities or something would go, they'd be able to go home and reflect and whatever and something like that. So they decided to reverse that. So now it's just anyone who wasn't a minority would be able to go home and like the minorities would whatever. And Brett Herzog just stated something. This is kind of a bad precedent, you know. Yeah, the thing in itself, the first one wasn't very was kind of racist in some way, but now reversing it is just as racist type of thing. But he probably states it differently. But just the idea of subjugating a group based on skin color, right, creed or whatever, is dangerous. And so he got a lot of flack for it. The students that considered him racist wanted him out, you know, the whole cancel culture thing. And he was like, why? And sorry, the head of that college had security police officers that could guard him because there's just a lot of threats against him that they were going to kidnap him and stuff like that. And he called it off. So he was pretty much alone. And so his students that took his class, that really liked him and knew him and knew him as not to be racist, and just protected him, and that was his guard. So it was a really weird event. They discussed it pretty well, and the only outlet that actually wanted him, that came to him to get the story out in his version of it or whatever, was Fox. And it's funny because he goes, some others, I think it was PBS, went to contact him and goes, hey, can we get your side of the story of what's going on? And it's like the first thing they ask is, why didn't you approach any of us? It's like, well, where were you guys? You know, the one who approached him was Fox. And of course he's a professor of evolutionary biology, and he says he's a classic liberal leftist, or classic libertarian, maybe liberal libertarian, whatever political, at least that's what he thinks of politically. And and so the cancel culture, which they call themselves the progressive left these days, wants to put him in the right, call him alt-right or Trump supporter, whatever it is. And there's a bad article that was written on The Stranger, you know, and he's like, oh, great. Both of them are like, we love The Stranger. I can't believe that they wrote something like this about us. And so that's where kind of Katie Herzog comes into the picture. She wrote an article, which is very fact-driven, by talking to people in the medical industry, maybe doctors and nurses, whatever. But she's lesbian. You know, The Stranger, if you don't know, is a big Northwest paper, especially in Seattle. Was it Seattle based? Maybe Washington State based. I don't know if it's Seattle based, but I used to read it a lot. It's very, very liberal newspaper organization. It was kind of like on the outside of mainstream media. It was like the alternative media before the internet, and they carried over, I guess. And so she wrote an article about how there's trans people who went to a detransition, and she got real big flack for it by the LGBTQ community. And so she kind of had the whole cancel culture on her, because she's like, look, this happens. We should talk about something that happens. You know, it may not be PC, whatever your stigma is against talking about it. We should talk about it because it's something that should be talked about, because it's something that's always, it's like non-PC. It's no, you can't talk about that. That's something you can't talk about. It's like, no, I'm going to talk about it because it needs to be talked about. because it's not talked about. And why are we not talking about how it's not supposed to be talked about? That's a worrying thing, right? And so I think it was great. She also approached them. She kind of went through the same thing. And so she's no longer with the stranger. Same thing with these two. They were professors at the state college, and they were, what's that term where? I can't remember. But basically, they're set. They don't need to do anything. You know, I don't think they could get fired. They can resign. And I think that's what they did. Tenured. That's what it's called, tenured. So they left. And there's still a lot going on to this day about a lot of people against the cancel culture. And when you think about the entire idea of the cancel culture, the SJWs and whatnot, is just one paradigm that of division that wants to create the opposing division side. I don't think that they're that it's like a grassroots thing, because there's a lot of grassroots things that occur that never gets big, but whenever it somehow fits the agenda that's being pushed out by mainstream media, Hollywood, government, international government, especially all these special interest groups, corporations, they always seem to get a lot of support from those things. But when you actually have grassroots that want to challenge the establishment type of thing, you don't see it grow very fast or big at all. But anyways, it kind of backfired, and now they're just more well known. I think they get a lot more money, notoriety, and attention. Katie Herzog, I think like no one knew who she was. I don't think they ever read any of her articles until that big cancel culture is like, hey, you shouldn't be saying these things. And now everyone knows who she is, good or bad. They read her articles. They're just kind of waiting in the bushes, like, oh, what's she gonna say next? Where I can argue against and try to get her fired from wherever. But now it's gotten to the point where if you've gotten canceled in this day and age by cancel culture, you've found a way to voice your opinion, say what needs to be said, release what needs to be released into whatever medium's out there, and it's almost impossible to stop, because what's the pressure, right? The pressure, if you're working for a state college, if you're working for a newspaper outlet, they can fire you or threaten to fire you. But when you decide to leave, like they did, they've got no pressure. There's nothing that the divisive side can say or do except for threatening them with their lives or something, right? And that's, I think, another thing. So people telling the truth, whether it's ugly or bad, throws a bad image out to some organization, entity, society, whatever. It's there to be dealt with. They're looking for the truth. They're seeking it. They're trying to get people to discuss what are the underlying problems, not to just hide the problems until something worse happens. So many analogies to this. It was, it's like, I need to change my oil in my car, but I'm too lazy, so I'll just reset the change oil maintenance light, and it'll be fine. We'll just wait till next one. And then next thing you know, the car breaks down. It's like, what's going on? Oh, there's no oil in the car, so it's gotten all brittle and stuff like that. Yeah. Well, you hit the problem for too long. You could just easily said, yeah, I didn't change the oil. The indicator light's still on. We should probably change the oil. Stuff like that. And me, I remember when I was a kid, I was, I think, 12 years old, and some girl in my neighborhood got an air rifle. and she was shooting at a couple of things, and she shot at me. But luckily it wasn't pumped very hard, and it just kind of it hit my thigh. And I was like, she's go, did that hurt? And I go, yeah, it stung, but it wasn't that bad. And she goes, can I shoot you closer? And I go, I was stupid, but I go, okay. So she shot me in the calf, and that BB's still in my leg, by the way. But I was kind of limping home, and I was like, yeah, it kind of hurts more than the other one, but whatever. I go home and I look under, and it's like there's blood everywhere, and it's like, that's not good. And I noticed that there's a hole in my leg. I was like, okay, so I cleaned it up and went on my day, and didn't tell my parents, didn't even tell my brother. I think it was when I came back from school the next day, where they're like, why are you limping? Because I guess I couldn't stop it, and I go, just no reason I'm limping. And so I had to show my leg, and they saw that there's a BB, and I had to tell the truth, or I'd get hell for it. But that probably saved me and my leg, because it could have gotten infected. I would have had gangrene or something like that, and lost my leg, or it might have spread, killed me. But yeah, I hid the problem when I didn't have to, and by just showing the problem in itself, it got fixed, right? Yeah, infected. So what we have today are people who don't want to face the truth, whether it's courageous, lack of courage, whatever it is. I don't know what it is, but even people. So while they were giving a speech in the Evergreen State College, or he was giving a speech, one of the students, or maybe he's just walking around, one of the students asked him a question, and she truly just wanted to know what was going on. She was a black woman, black student, and they had a long conversation, I guess. And he was like, "Oh, things seem to be okay." And the next day, that student, had to go up in front of everyone with like a prepared speech, and like apologize and stuff like that. I mean, that's just the whole social pressure of whatever it is. And I think that's going to be tough for the kids, because kids have to go through school. They're going to have to go through university if they want to. They're going to have to go through the entire process we pretty much had to go through. Then they're going to get a job, and they're going to be, okay, whatever job that is, there's always going to be some type of pressure put on you to not talk about certain things, whether it's within the entity that you work with, that you have a job for, whether that's a corporation, whether that's a government agency, whether that's a multimedia outlet, whatever it is. There's some things that you can't talk about, you can't let the public know, and if you do, you're going to get flack for it. But that's just the repercussions of the adult after school life. And if you're a student, well, you're going to have the peer pressure and the social pressure of any group that's out there is just going to pressure you to not think for yourself. You're going to have to think, follow along with whatever thought process that someone else already has had set up for you. And you're going to see a lot of people just kind of succumb to that, right? It's going to be the herd mentality, but you're going to eventually have a couple of kids, students, and go, this is stupid. I'm going to say what I want and do what I want. And that's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome when that happens. And that's all I've got really for tonight. I know it's a short one, hopefully people will want to join in. You can always join in any of my live streams. The link is in the description box. And if it's not there, you can ask me for it, and I'll go ahead and send you the information to join on Zoom. It's either you can either join with video, or you can just call in. I mean, there's so many. Here's the thing: there's just so many good quotes out there, people who talk about the truth and having your own opinion, thinking for yourself. We just don't see them, right? We see what's out there because it wouldn't be inspirational, right? If we didn't see anything like that. But it's not like we ever see the opposite, right? Here's this quote: "Courage means going against majority opinion in the name of the truth." We never see a quote that's inspiring that says, "Courage means going with the majority opinion despite the truth." You know, we never see anything like that. I mean, do you look for inspiration in lies, in dishonesty? We never see that as like something to be inspired. And this is something that's right, but there's only one way to avoid criticism: do nothing, say nothing, and be nothing. Here's one: "It takes strength and courage to admit the truth." No one ever says it takes strength and courage to admit, or to I don't know. Isn't admitting the truth the same as admitting a lie? Because if you're admitting a lie, you're telling the truth. I can't do that reversal with this one. Here we go. Lies are the best arrow and courage the finest bow. No one ever like put lies as like you guys get the whole point. You know, all this stuff is really good and inspirational and whatnot. Even with courage is just a lot of good stuff. Even with people who are, even today, you're probably like, yeah, he wasn't that good of a person. I don't know. I don't think she's that. They got some issues, but it's all fine. I mean, you can still take words and take it to heart, because it resonates something with you and everyone. Really, it should. Maybe it doesn't with some people. I like this, George R. R. Martin, Game of Thrones. I always thought he's got some good stuff. Can a man still be brave if he's afraid? And his father says that is the only time a man can be brave. Good stuff, right? And with all of this stuff, with having the courage to do things that you're not supposed to do, say things that you're not supposed to say, whatever, even though we're supposed to have all these great freedoms that we say we have, when push comes to shove, it usually ends up being people will just be shoved. But I think when you push certain people too far, individuals, they're gonna bounce, they're gonna retaliate back. It's only a matter of time. And that happens with, that's the bully mentality is the majority mentality, usually. Because they're usually, I wouldn't say the majority, I would say the established, establishment is kind of the majority, isn't it, in democracy. The bigger, like, bullies are usually never the smaller kids, right? They're usually the bigger and the older. It's not like anyone, you don't see the 70-year-old 45-pound kid picking on like a 12-year-old 105-pound kid, right? It doesn't happen. It's always going to be the bigger kid and the older kid that's going to pick on the younger and smaller kid. So it's the same thing. You want to do is punch up, not punch down. Although I would, yeah. All right, I'm gonna make it short because I'm just coughing, and I know I didn't want to just cough in people's ears. So, what was I gonna say? So the establishment, whatever it is, the ruling force, they're gonna always push back and expect no resistance at all. People can say that they're resisting. It's like, I'm resisting. You're not really resisting. But they know they can't go too far, because when they go too far, they in the past, whatever history has, whether it's written or not, or established or not, or whatever really happened or not, there's a certain amount of force that can be exerted without any retaliation, and that's as far as they go, unless they push it too far, and they'll probably backtrack if they have, because they realize, hey, once we go, we have to go all the way, otherwise it's the same thing, just on the other side, right? It takes courage first you have to start, and you have to go all the way. It's the same thing on the reverse side. It's just kind of like bluffing, right? You can only bluff so much until you realize you actually have to show your cards. So you don't want to go, you don't want to overdo it. There's a limit. So it's almost the exact opposite, except you don't want to go all the way. You just want to keep it in the middle. You want to. All right, I'm horrible at this. Hopefully you get the whole gist of it. Is people who threaten with violence, right? There's only, and if someone threatens you with violence, whoever it is, what you want to do as a truth seeker is confront them and see if they are going to resort to the violence they said they would, or are they a liar and a coward. So you do two things by confronting them to find out the truth. You find out that they are indeed violent, and they will commit violence against you, and thus you'll be prepared, because you understand that, well, if this is a threat and they are going to be violent towards you, you're going to be prepared for that violence. But then you go, okay, you confronted them, you're waiting for that violence to happen, and they don't do it. And so you go, oh, so you're just a liar and a coward then. And that's kind of pushing it, right? But you still want to see if they want to exert that violence. Do they exert that violence? No. Well, you know one thing, that they're a liar and a coward. So you don't have to worry about anything. Or they do violence towards you, and you stop that violence because you're prepared for it. And now, after all it's said and done, you don't have to worry about it, because someone's committed that violence, and you handled that violence to end it. And that's that. And then things correct from themselves after that. Whether you're in trouble or they're in trouble, whatever it is, I think real justice will be served by whatever happens. And it doesn't matter if you end up dying in the process or not. I mean, that's just the courage it takes to face the truth of whatever situation it is. I mean, it's also a way to be okay with whatever happens, having no stake in the outcome. Because if you have a stake in the outcome and you just live in this fear of not confronting whatever the individual is that's threatening you, you never know. They have this power over you, because the power is fear. They control what you fear, and they can initiate it at any time, and thus you break down, you listen, you pretty much are a slave in some ways, because they understand the fear process is what can control your actions. But then if you confront them and go, look, this isn't right. If you indeed are going to do violence towards me, do it now. Otherwise, you're just a liar and a coward. And things are going to work out in your favor. It's never going to work out in their favor very well, because all you're doing is seeking the truth. They're either lying or they're violent. Either way, that's just not a good way to survive or live. So that's all I got. That's all I got to say. And when they know that you have no fear, they're more afraid of you. Whoever it is, whatever entity, they're just like, they could lie. I mean, that's all that they know, right? Because if they want to control you by instilling fear in you, usually that has some type of a force or violence, or the thought of violence, or an act of violence, right? That they're going to try to use against you. And of course, that's if that doesn't work, if it's a bluff, then they're just liars. And if they're violent, well, you know who the violent people are. You end the violence right then and there. That way, they can't use that same. They can't use that violence against someone else who's more afraid, who's less prepared, whatever. And maybe they don't even need to use that violence. The other person is just can be scared. So it's just like having. Imagine you just witness some person bullying or really murdering even or whatever, raping, and you just ignore it and you just go on with your life. Well, that person's going to do it again, most likely, because they got away with it. But if they're trying to do that to you and you don't want that to happen to somebody else, because like just like predators, within wildlife, they don't go for the healthy, like whether it's lions, tigers, wolves, any type of predator out there, they're not going to go for the healthiest, strongest alpha animal out there. They're going to go for one that's sick or old or whatever, weak. They're going to go for the young. So they know the repercussions of trying to go against something that's that's ready for them, right? They're going to pick on someone that's smaller, weaker. It's just more of a sure bet, right? It's like if you're whatever game that you like to play, you're not going to go and want to face the returning champion in the first round. You don't want to go and face go all in against someone who is playing pretty strong, has a chip lead, right? It's not in your best interest to do that. So whatever it is, it's always going to be, prey on the weaker. So that's it for tonight. And I'm sorry I coughed so many times, but I warned you. No one joined, but that's okay. I don't think anyone's joined my conversations in like a couple months, but that's all right. All right. Everyone have a good weekend. I'm going to be in Naples in a couple days, and I don't think I'll be doing a live stream then, but when I get back, I will. I looked into the cult of NASA's origins, the cult origins of NASA. Sorry, get some of the words all twisted. Someone already has done a lot of research into it. Actually, a couple people. So I'm probably just gonna rehash that. Except I'll probably throw in a few videos of the established narrative, the establishment, whatever part that they have at play, talking about these people that have these occult origins. And it's like, look, you're either gonna have to take their word for it, or not, right? So if you're not going to take the established supportees of NASA and physics and what have you, and saying, no, you just gotta, cult origins, whatever, it has no bearing on anything. It has a lot to do with a lot of bearing, right? The backstory is very important to any story that's told, and who originates everything and things like that. I mean, say you hate Donald Trump, okay? You really hate him. You just can't stand the guy. You can't stand him as president. You don't want anything to do with him. You want him out. And then you realize you're in a hotel that was built by Trump. It's like, does that affect you in any way? I think so. You're going to give money to this man that you hate? And you're gonna be like, no, I refuse to do that, right? It has bearing. Anyways, that's for next time. Anyways, thank you. Everyone have a good weekend. For school kids out there that are on their break, enjoy your break, and see you next time.